Welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming to Ventura Collective's LinkedIn Live. We will start our session with a harm acknowledgement. Ana Maria.
Thank you, Linda. Welcome, everybody. We are currently living in Jirjiage, Jibuktuk, and Katoronto, lands of the Kanien'kehá:ka Nation, Mi'kmaq Nation, lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Wendat, and the Haudenosaunee peoples. Canada exists as we know it today because of the harmful impacts of colonization and coloniality. We acknowledge the harm of colonization and coloniality that First Nations and peoples of the global diaspora still experience today, particularly First Nations, Black peoples, and those with these and other intersections who experience displacement, land theft, enslavement, violence, genocide, and cultural appropriation. With humility and respect, we express our deep gratitude to the original peoples of Turtle Island, who continue to fulfill their responsibilities as guardians and stewards of these lands, waters, plant life, animal life, and all the beautiful elements of creation since time immemorial. We continue to learn about and honor our responsibilities as treaty people as we work in solidarity with fellow community members to heal from the harm of colonization and to reclaim the joy, well-being, creativity, and liberation that is every human's birthright. We thank Lena Sharma Seth from Mending the Chasm for inspiring us to move from a land acknowledgement to an acknowledgement of colonization and coloniality's harm to Turtle Islands and its land stewards.
Thank you so much, Ana Maria. And I have the pleasure to introduce our guest today. So my name is Linda Espinosa Valencia. I'm here with my co-founder, Ana Maria de Maison Cornejo. We co-founded Ventura Collective, a diversity, equity, and inclusion consulting collective that leverages the power of the collective to bring systemic solutions to systemic issues. We're honored to have Masika Mahabir here from Diversity Nexus. She will be sharing with us the work she's doing as a CEO and founder of Diversity Nexus. And the work that Diversity Nexus is doing to educate others on how to support Black women equitably and effectively. Masika is a dedicated advocate for equity and justice. She leads with a trauma-informed approach and offers transformative DEI solutions. Drawing from her profound experiences, she courageously addresses cultural complexities, leaving a lasting mark on the organizations and people that she works with. Diversity Nexus offers a full platform of services that are aimed to support equity, especially related to the well-being and prosperity of the Black community, and especially Black women and women of African descent. As CEO of Diversity Nexus, Masika has created brilliant, interactive, and engaging experiences. We're very fortunate today in this LinkedIn Live. We will be seeing part of these wonderful experiences that currently Diversity Nexus is offering, not only for Women's History Month, but for the whole year. Welcome, Masika. We're so excited to have you today.
Thank you so much, Linda and Ana Maria, for the lovely introduction. But before we begin today, I want to set the stage for today's talk with a trigger warning. Today's conversation will include discussions about violence and trauma, including workplace trauma and racial trauma. So please take care of yourself and your mental well-being while engaging in today's chat. I thought it would be a good idea to talk about my presentation, but I wanted to hand it back to you, Ana and Linda.
Thank you, Masika. It's very centering and important to start with that. And we wanted to, first of all, have a little chance for the participants to get to know you more. We have the pleasure of knowing you and having had many conversations, especially in preparation for this LinkedIn Live. But please tell us a little bit about you.
Okay, so I am a first generation Canadian. Both of my parents are Trinidadian. I'm very proud of my Trinidadian background. I am a single mother to a wonderful, wonderful young man. This wonderful young man was a boy at one point who had a learning disability, and I was a single mother to a child with a learning disability. It was quite a challenge. But fast forward to just being a single mother. I didn't anticipate to be a single mother. That was never the plan, but it happened to be the plan, which happens to many women and girls. So I was rolling with the punches. I was trying to find a place for myself in this capitalistic world in the workforce. I attended a community college where I earned just of my basic business administration information, and that was just enough of a platform to be the catalyst to bring me into the workforce, bring me into workplaces, and quite. And the beginning of my career, I did a lot of temp work. A lot of temp work because that was the only work I could get at the time that was really quick. Because being a single mom, you need to make sure you've got food on the table, the lights on, and I don't have time for that long interview process and all of that. I needed work right away, so I was in the unfortunately I was in the temporary side for quite a bit, but it actually gave me a fantastic perspective of what it's like to work in different offices and different industries. So that was a really interesting foundation for me. And that's when I realized I was really passionate about human resources. I wanted to find the best way to support people in organizations. So I started pursuing HR, only to discover that HR wasn't the vehicle that I was looking for. It was HR didn't provide the space that I was looking to create impact and create a cultural change within organizations and within my organization. And I thought, okay, well, this is where I am. I've put so much effort into HR. This is where I am. But then uh, I was then put into the position to help develop corporate cultures. And that was my sweet spot. I started doing corporate events, helping build corporate cultures. And that I just loved doing that. Fast forward to 2013. I'm getting ready in the morning, doing my makeup, literally putting on my mascara as CP24 is running in the background. And my son is getting ready for school and I'm getting ready for work. Then I heard the story of Trayvon Martin. Trayvon Martin was sadly killed by George Zimmerman back. I didn't research, but I believe it's 2013 when that happened. And what happened was Trayvon ended up being killed because he did not respond satisfactorily to George Zimmerman's demands. And that resulted in violence against Trayvon. At the time, my son's learning disability really it manifests in his speech just generally, but at that time, his speech, the way that it was impacting his speech was quite profound, and so that made him more quiet. That made him, slower to respond. And so, hearing that story about what happened to Trayvon and that he was killed because he didn't respond fast enough, well enough, satisfactory enough, terrified me because I had already witnessed my son when we went to his high school to pick up his uniform. The vice principal was going down the line, shaking all the parents' hands, introducing himself, and welcoming all the new families to the high school. When he got to my son and I, my son, as very tall, dark-skinned black boy at the time, very quiet because of his learning disability, didn't say much other than hello and shook the man's hand. So the man's talking to us, maybe 3 minutes go by. At the end of it, he leans into me really quietly and asks me if my son was in a gang. What did my son do? What did he say? He did nothing, said nothing, but the perception of his silence and his physical dark skin and height, that was read as violent. That was read as a threat. So just hearing what happened to Trayvon terrified me, and it propelled me to doing something to make our world more safe for not only our Black boys and men, but for all Black people and all purposefully and marginalized groups. So that's my story of how I got here. Fast forward 2018, I started pursuing academic training and education in diversity, equity, and inclusion. I ended up having a fantastic, actually, let me pause. After suffering workplace traumas, um, I was really in a shaky position returning to the workforce, and I was really happy to have met Helm Life and Elise and this team to help, fantastic team who helped nurture me and create a safe space for me, relatively safe space for me to find who I was again and find and reunite myself with myself. And fast forward 2 years working at Helm Life as the director of diversity, equity, and inclusion. I led a team of junior diversity professionals. We created fantastic games and informative content and educational and awareness pieces for all, and the most commonly recognized heritage months and moments. And then fast forward to December 2023, when I had this fantastic opportunity presented to me to launch Diversity Nexus. I have been an entrepreneur in the making for the last 10, 15 years, just waiting for that opportunity to launch Diversity Nexus. And here we are. And I could not be happier. I feel so blessed and so proud to be in community with you all. And so I'm just so excited. And does that tell you a little bit about me? Oh,
That tells us everything. We loved it.
one second, one more thing. And I love dogs.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much for that little story about you and how to get to be who you are right now and the amazing work that you're doing with Diversity Nexus. Actually, this is a perfect segue to start showing the kind of work that you do with Diversity Nexus. Ana Maria, would you like to share the?
Yes, very, very excited.
So thank you so much for pulling that up for me, Ana Maria. So today, I don't want us to spend too much time looking at slides because we do that every day, right? But I thought it would be a good way to set the foundation, set the stage, and provide some examples of the Black experience for a few Black women that I feel represent parts of my life and likely represent parts of all of our lives. First of all, do we all understand what intersectionality is here in the room? Uh, uh, you could drop it in the chat, thumbs up, reaction.
We invite everyone that is participating to please participate on the LinkedIn Live comments. Masika is really inviting us to do a very interactive session, so it's really a gift to all of us. It's never a bad thing to please go through the concept again, but if people would like to share comments, do so, please.
Yes, I guess that's one thing which really sets Diversity Nexus apart from a lot of DEI organizations is the content that we develop is more on that interactive side. In one of the marketing pieces that I created last year was, are you tired of the mundane DEI events? So are we. Yes, we're tired of the standard, you talk, we listen, or we talk, you listen. Diversity Nexus has really amped up the interactive portion or element of the experience of diversity, equity, inclusion. So any answers there in the chat?
Yes, we have Naomi here. Thank you for joining us, Naomi. And she said yes, she's familiar with intersectionality, and we got a lot of thumbs up as well.
Okay, wonderful. So it seems like we have a base understanding of what intersectionality is. So let me tell you a little quick story about my story, one of many experiences of intersectionality as a Black woman. Okay, so it's Black History Month. I'm not going to say what year it is because it's a real story. It's Black History Month, and I was able to scrape together a budget to launch Black History Month programming for the organization. I stress and emphasize scrape a budget together is because there was no budget given. None. And I had to make, like many Black women, I had to make a dollar out of a dime, and I figured it out. And I basically did some research, developed an educational 4-week program for Black History Month that would be, released every week, a new theme, a new information to be shared. And I ended it with a lot of food. Every week we would have some sort of food from the African descended peoples. And so it was such a struggle to get this Black History Month event programming completed, but I did it. And I felt so proud, and I'm so happy that I was able to make something out of nothing. Now, February 28th, it's over. Now I go to work, it's March 1st. And literally, I'm driving to work and I was speeding. Don't tell the OPP. I was speeding down the highway, listening to Beyonce, "Who Runs the World, Girls?" And I was like feeling the woman power. I was feeling the girl power. On the radio, there was just Black. I was listening to a Black radio station. So they were playing Black women artists after Black women artists. And I'm even getting goosebumps remembering how amped and proud I felt as a woman that morning. And then I park my car, get into the office, and only to be told, "Masika, move out of the way. We need this space because we're preparing for a Women's History Month event." First of all, I was shocked because I was responsible for creating the events. I was not told about this event. I knew nothing of it. And not only that, I was told to move out of the way.
Literally.
So literally, I was told, move out of the way. We need this space because we're setting something up for Women's History Month. And immediately I'm like, how could they not include me? How could they not invite me? I know how, because they don't recognize or understand intersectionality. They see me as a Black person, just a Black person. And I use the word just a Black person intentionally. They failed to see my intersectionality. They failed to recognize that I am a woman too. Black Lives Matter too, like that too, that invisible too, that people of the broader society tend to not recognize, that invisible too. I'm a woman too. So yes, that is my story about intersectionality. I just wanted to make sure that we all understood what intersectionality was and the importance of it before we continue this conversation. And it's
And I'm sorry to interrupt you. Yeah, go ahead and go ahead.
And actually, it's because of that experience, that's how this presentation was born. It was the lack of recognizing my intersectionality, my humanity. And then after the umpteenth, we had a Women in Tech monthly type event. After the umpteenth Women in Tech type of event that only featured white women, a woman in the South Asian community came up to me after one of the events and said, "Hey, Masika, how come you've never been on the panel? How come you've never been part of one of these women in STEM? You've got many years of experience in this." And I said to them, I'm like, "Yes, that's true. Why haven't I been invited? Why indeed?" Sorry to Linda. That was just the last part I wanted to finish off.
No, absolutely. Please, always you can keep going. I just wanted to point out and how, the more intersections you have, the more oppression is gone through, right? So if we're talking about, as we said, you're black, you're a woman. If you're a disabled person, it's another layer. If you are queer, is another layer, right? All of these layers and how oppression compounds. So it's so important to bring that up. So thank you, Masika.
Absolutely. And it shows how in the status quo, because of systemic racism, because of white supremacy, the concept of women only encompasses, for the majority, right, only white women. So this is an example that is very important to bring up.
White, skinny, or not skinny, what's the word? White,
Thin.
Thin, able-bodied women with no disability.
Exactly.
Yeah, so like that section of what is the definition of women is even further marginalized by body shape, body size, and ability and disability. You're right.
Absolutely.
Um, I felt that. So again, being in this DEI space, I'm hired to do Black content, and then they're like, "Thanks, Masik, for the Black History Month information. We'll see you next year." with March coming up right after, which is Women's History Month, and I'm like, I'm still here. We don't need to say goodbye till next year. So yes, Women's History Month, I am a woman. And then fast forward to Pride. Guess what? I'm also part of the queer community. So guess what? You can still talk to me then. But never mind those labels. We can talk about the liberation of Black people, women, queer people all year round, not just in February, not just in March, not just in June. So yes, so I just wanted to point that out, that it's still my experience in 2024. I got an email last week saying, "Hey, Masika, love your content. We don't have the budget for this year, but." We will definitely hire you next year for Black History Month. I already have it as a budget line for next year. You're hired for next year for sure. And then I'm like, that's lovely. And I'm so excited, responding to the email. However, Diversity Nexus also, celebrates Women's History Month and National Indigenous History Month and on all of the other ones. So I haven't heard back from them yet, but I'm hoping they took the hint that they can continue to talk to me.
Absolutely.
Okay, so are we moving on now to the presentation part?
Yes.
Yes,
Absolutely.
wonderful. So now we're looking at the actual content. So I felt that these women are a really great representation of my lived experience. And I'm sure, again, a lot of people in this room and beyond lived experience. So starting with Dr. Candia Bailey, sadly, her life was cut short due to workplace harassment and the impact it had on her mental health. She died by suicide on January 8th of just this year. Then we're moving on to Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. Oops, wrong button. Sorry, I get excited with all these buttons. See how interactive?
I love it.
Chimamanda, a novelist and a feminist icon in intersectional feminism, particularly in its relevance in African context. Because my dear friend in community, Linda, pointed out to me a couple of weeks ago that not all Black people, or not all people who are, not all people identify as Black. Some people would prefer the term African or African descendant. Not everyone identifies with the term Black. So I thought it was important to include Chimamanda and the various experiences of Black women. Angela Davis, fantastic novelist, fantastic writer, fantastic activist and intellectual, known for her involvement in the civil rights movement and the Black Panther Party and the fight for global solidarity, the fight for justice and liberation. And Sandra Bland. Sandra Bland, I don't know if we remember, because I have not heard anyone say her name in quite some time. She was a young Black woman whose suspicious death while in police custody sparked a widespread outrage and activism, and she became a central figure in the Say Her Name movement. Sandra Bland was an outspoken Black woman online. She was at the time, I think the term was called social justice warrior, keyboard warrior, or something like that. I forget the phrase, but something along the line. She was very vocal, speaking out against oppression. And then lastly, Marie Joseph Angelique. So the women that you see here, these women are American and African here. And Marie Joseph Angelique, she's the only Canadian woman within these 5 women here. I thought, first of all, it's important to include that there's Black women in Canada. There's a video, the documentary on Oscar Peterson and his life for Black. It was a TIFF movie, or it was premiered at TIFF. The beginning of that documentary starts out with, I think, Quincy Jones saying, he's a Black musician from Montreal. And then Quincy Jones laughs and says, I didn't know there was Black people in Canada. So yes, there's Black people in Canada. And there was actually slavery in Canada as well. Canada has fantastic branding. We are known as the good guys, as the proud Mounties, the utopia and the savior for the Africans, the enslaved Africans in America fleeing chattel slavery. But Canada is just very good at hiding our stories. That's the only difference. Canada is no different than the United States in that regard. So I thought it was very important to include Marie-Joseph Angelique's story. Her life was shaped by the bonds of slavery, culminating in her wrongful accusation, brutal torture, and eventual execution. We're just going to watch this video.
Marie-Joseph Angelique was a Black enslaved woman charged with one of the most infamous crimes in Quebec's history. Marie-Joseph Angelique tried to run away with her lover, a white man named Claude Thibault, but they were caught and returned to Montreal. He went to prison. She was returned to her slave owner, Madame de Francheville. About 2 months later, a fire broke out and destroyed the city.
Alors, ce qu'on sait, c'est que le 10 avril...
What we know is that April 10th is a Saturday, and Madame de Francheville is way uptown in church for evening prayers. And Marie-Joseph Angelique is on the doorstep. And then, all of a sudden, someone shouts fire.
Fire, 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 fire.
And it spread to the rest of the merchant's quarter. It burned down the merchant's quarter. And also the hospital, Hotel Dieu, and many other buildings.
And 3 hours later, so around 10, 11 o'clock at night, 46 houses have been destroyed.
Rumors quickly began to circulate that it was Thibault and Angelique who set fire to Madame de Francheville's house. And then the next day,
they arrested her. They took her to court the following morning, and she was charged with the fire.
Despite little evidence, Marie-Joseph Angelique was found guilty, tortured, and sentenced.
It was Marie-Joseph Angelique against the world.
She was paraded through the streets of Montreal in a white chemise with the word incendiaire, or arsonist, embroidered on it, to face her hanging.
And all this in front of an enormous crowd. There was no entertainment in New France. That was the entertainment. And then they took down her body and burned it.
No one knows for sure if Angelique set the fire, yet we know how she died. We know how she lived too. She was enslaved, along with more than 4,000 African and Indigenous people, bought and sold in Canada.
Hear them calling for your fire. Hear them calling, calling, crawling, crawling for you.
Thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to share this information about these Black women. When Linda and Anna Marie and I met to talk about how this conversation was going to happen, I was trying to figure out how to talk about myself without talking about myself, because not everyone, we have to be careful who we let in our hearts, who we allow, with our stories. And yes, I will share some of my stories, but not all of my stories. So these women, I feel, represent my journey, my experience in the workplace, and how I came to be the CEO and founder of Diversity Nexus. So moving on to, I want us to talk about whether it's the historical exploitation of Black women's bodies in medical experiments, or the commercialization and consumption of Black talent, creativity, personalities, voices, mannerisms, and even our hairstyles. We see that Black women experience harassment and even job loss for wearing our natural hair. And from this experience, I've come to understand that from the beginning of colonization, Black women were not meant to survive. We were meant to be used and spit out. So the fact that a Black woman exists in any and every form is a form of resistance. So I want to talk about these painful statistics. The National Intimate Partner and Sexual Violence Survey conducted by the CDC found that 44% of Black women have experienced physical violence, sexual violence, or stalking by an intimate partner during their lifetime. Within the past year, about 32% of Black women reported experiencing IPV, compared to 28% of white women, according to the same survey. Most African American and Afro-Caribbean women who have experienced lifetime partner abuse reported physical and psychological abuse, and combination of psychological, sexual, and physical abuse by 30%. Among African American and African Caribbean women, having children 18 years or older was associated with lifetime intimate partner violence. I want to point out something about these statistics. These statistics are American. Want to know why? Because Canada doesn't care enough to actually have statistics on Black women, on Black people. There might be some for Black people, but definitely I was not able to find any on Black women. So I'm basing it off of American statistics. And based on what I've shared here, think about this. What do these statistics mean for our Black families? When you look at it from this perspective, what does this mean for our Black community when this is the experience for many Black women? This is an open question to the audience, to everyone, to you, Linda, and Anna Maria.
We know that just with the pay gap, it compounds year over year, and we know that Black women are owed millions of dollars in just the pay gap, right? Plus accumulated of promotions. So you don't get a promotion, so it's an increase in pay. So all of that affect Black families. We know it affects the Latinx community as well. The Afro Latinx community is even more so affected. So absolutely.
Yeah, and with the chilling statistics that you are bringing, Masika, we understand that this is not only a workplace issue, but a deeper issue within society, right? With structural discrimination and violence towards Black women and femmes. And that, as you were saying, how does this affect the future, the intergenerational, right? And now we are learning, or we already know about intergenerational trauma. So how is this showing what future generations are going to experience within the Black community?
So, and I appreciate the both of you bringing up that wage gap and the money that is owed to Black women historically. So like, for example, when as a Black woman, I will be, for example, let's say I'm terminated because of my Blackness, because I'll use a real life example about a Black woman who was hired at Jack Astor's on Front Street in Toronto, who was let go because she couldn't wear her hair according to dress code. The dress code meant that the servers at Jack Astor needed to wear their hair down, I believe that was the rule. And she recently had removed her braids and her hair was up in a bun. Her natural hair does not fall down like that, like what's required at the time in their dress code. And she lost her job. She lost her job. She lost income from that. So when you think about, and then she has to now look for another job, and it might be 3 to 6 months before she's employed again. That time is where a time where she's not earning any money. That is part of what feeds into that wage gap. So we're going to talk about the wage gap at the end and in a bit, but it's these experiences that continue to broaden and widen that wage gap for Black women and women of color.
Yeah, and we have some comments from our participants.
Can
I can bring them up. Thank you, Linda. So from Jonah, I believe Black women are probably the most marginalized group in society, and we know women are the bedrock of any society.
Thank you for your comment, Jonna. We agree.
The theme for Black History Month is about building our futures. It has something to do with building our futures as well. Forgive me for not quoting it accurately. And when I was preparing for our talk today, I'm thinking about how are we building our futures if our Black women aren't supported?
Precisely.
Here's another great comment from Simone. It said, her healthcare system, especially with maternal healthcare crisis for Black women.
Absolutely. We don't have the time, but actually, if maybe I'm spoiler alert here, maybe I'm giving away an announcement. But at the end of today's event, if you want to have this presentation for free, just email me at Masika at workdiversitynexus.com. I'm sure Linda Rena will put that in the chat. Email me for your free copy of today's presentation. And if you would like a paid version, this is where we would go more in depth into the topics that we're talking about here. Because, for example, I really wish we had the time to talk about the mothers of gynecology, the Black women whose bodies were used to practice, or what's the term that I'm looking for, to when you're practicing medical stuff, experiment. They are Black women's bodies that were used to experiment gynecology on, often and more times without any form of anesthesia. So yes, healthcare and Black women, that is an entire conversation on its own. Black women and maternal statistics, and it's just, that's an entire conversation on its own, which I also have intimate experience having, being a mother of being a woman who gave birth to 2 children, but am only a mother to 1. Does that make sense? Does that formula make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm sharing right now the information with your email so people can reach out.
Okay, so part of the reason I wanted to share these women, so like, for example, when I experienced the workplace trauma, the people that were enacting the violence in the workplace, they see me and my lived experience and our relationship in a vacuum, in a very narrow perspective. They don't see all of what's happening underneath the water, which is the years of abuse that I've experienced, the intimate partner violence, the experience of being a Black woman, and the other traumas that I've experienced in life. They didn't realize that the workplace racial violence that they were enacting on me was my last straw. And they don't know, we don't know, who is so close to it being their last day. And this doesn't go for just Black women. This goes for all women in the workplace. Women as a marginalized group, there's so much pressure. There's so many different forms of inequity. You don't know what's the last straw for someone. And back years ago, I was very close to my last straw. So that's why it was so important for me to share Dr. Candia Bailey, Chamanda Ngozi Adichie. Now, last year, there was calls. She was being accused of being a trans exclusionary radical feminist, a TERF. She was being accused of suggesting that trans women aren't women, and she was being unfairly attacked. This feminist icon was being attacked because the interviewer thought this is a fantastic way for me to get clicks and views, which I believe it wasn't a white woman who was interviewing her, without recognizing the harm that she was directing to Chamanda.
Mm-hmm.
Sandra Bland, she was she suffered police brutality, which resulted in her death. Who do we go to as Black women for support when we can't even go to the police? Who do we go to? So if I because when I sorry, did I lose you? Did we get disconnected?
We're
No?
still on.
Gotcha. So when I experienced a type of trauma, there was no community for me to lean on at the time. And if I were to have out this man in the community who committed this violence against me, then it would put me in further harm. Because when women speak out against violence, we then tend to be the point of or the target for additional violence. So when I ended up reporting violence, I ended up experiencing more of it. Who do we go to? And then now looking at Angela Davis, oh boy, what an inspiration, right? Like the impact that she has left on the landscape of civil rights movements, just amazing, right? And the books. And just recently, I just started reading, what is it? What's the book that we're reading now, Linda and Anna? Freedom
is a constant struggle.
Yes. When you click these buttons, you get to see more information about each of these amazing women. So that's the information there. And then I think we wanted to talk about, Anna, did you want to bring up a different topic?
No, thank you, Masika. No, it's I'm just taking everything in.
Oh, sorry. We were discussing earlier pet to threat.
Yes. That concept was brought to our attention through our partners from Black Talent Initiative when we had Lushwana and Hilda in a LinkedIn Live. Lushwana brought that topic up, and I'll pass it over to Linda to talk a bit more about this pet to threat, especially concept. It's coined by Dr. Keisha Thomas, and especially in the context of what happened, for example, in Quebec Human Rights Commission with Tamara Thermitus.
Yeah, I mean, that happens, every day in any corporation or organization where, they talk about wanting to have diversity. And when they hire a Black woman, usually, like the only Black person in the organization, everybody's very excited, everybody's very happy about it, until, the Black woman decides to, be who she is, bring up situations of racism or wanting to change. In the case of, this lawyer in Quebec, who was the Human Rights Commission executive and wanted to make change because realized all the systemic problems in there, and her career was destroyed because of this wanting to bring up change, right? So this situation to go from pet to threat, and it's pretty much what you're describing, right? Like once you spoke up, like you were pushed aside, you were vilified, you're the angry Black woman, and that's something that it really, as you have expressed, it has a impact on mental health, right? And physical health as well.
After discovering that one of the white women in my office intentionally conspired with another white colleague in the leadership, in the C-suite, to deny me an award. See, I'm losing track of what I'm saying because I'm experiencing a little bit of a traumatic flashback. So after experiencing that trauma of being denied an award, after earning an award, after not being recognized for my efforts, my energy, my talents for many years, was very painful. And when I brought it to the attention of HR, they told me that I was just being too sensitive.
Not surprising at all.
Yeah.
And then one last story on pet to threat. I was hired as a DEI representative, a professional. And they said, Masika, we need change. Like, I can't remember which one of you just said, we need to have, change our website. We need to have some lessons. We need to have a DEI plan. We need some training immediately. Post haste. And I said, okay. So the first thing I'm going to tackle is supplier diversity. And we had one small program, a campaign or a program called it was called the baby program. So when an employee had a baby, they would receive a certain gift from the company. And I'm like, well, who are we getting this gift from? It was not a person of color. It was a woman, but not a woman of color. So I suggested, how about we diversify this one program here? I'm going to research and find 4 options for us to consider. And when I went back to the leadership and I said, here are the 4 options to consider, it was 2 Black women, a South Asian woman, and I believe a Vietnamese woman. All of these women having something to do with intersectionality and the dimensions of diversity. Like, so one Black woman, her products were about gender fluidity. And then the other Black woman, her products were about neurodiversity. And then the South Asian person was about colorism. And then, so they all had something. And when I made this presentation to the leadership team, the HR VP said, Masika, what is this? This is just Black women. And then I said, first of all, this isn't just Black women. These are women of color. And, this is what they offer. And then I ran through what their businesses offer and with the diversity of their business and how it aligns with the organizational goals. And then they said, Masika, you know what? You can't, we brought you in here for some guidance. You can't expect to create a utopia. And the hands went in the air like this. You can't expect to create a utopia. So yeah, I quickly went from pet to threat.
Masika, throughout this conversation, you have really guided us through or amplified the reality as a Black woman through the toxicity and discrimination that Black women experience in the workplace, and that compound to harming Black women. And as we said from our participants and from your stories and from the history that you've shared, in their health and ultimately their lives. So we see the work that you're doing as CEO of Diversity Nexus as a way to dismantle toxic workplaces, work environments, and you offer solutions for equitable work environments. So, we've talked about before your several of the really wonderful, curated, and also highly engaging experiences that Diversity Nexus offers in terms of training, education, consulting. So there's like narrative experiences like you have showed us now, that are educational, that are action-based, that are, full of knowledge, and also how to acquire sustainable frameworks within the organization. You also offer training through gamified solutions. You offer also talks. You've mentioned that there's a speaker lineup at Diversity Nexus that you're planning to launch in March.
Yes.
You also, you are also certified to utilize the Diversity, Equity, and Diversity Inclusion Service Management certification through the International Standard Organization. So I just wanted to have a little bit of a time to share with our with our participants all the array of offers that the solutions that Diversity Nexus offers, right? And not only from data and historical, but also coming from your lived experiences and your lived experiences in different environments, different companies, workplaces in Canada.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for setting that stage. I'm very passionate, if you haven't been able to tell, I'm very passionate about these type of conversations. I often forget to toot my own horn. I often forget to, big up what I'm doing and what I've accomplished, but because what I've accomplished is amazing. It deserves celebration. And I am so thankful that Ventura Collective has invited me here today to be part of my celebration, to be part of my journey. Diversity Nexus is a diversity, equity, and inclusion company. I have a fantastic team of diversity, equity, and inclusion professionals. I'm very thankful to have a team. It is very difficult to do this work on your own. So I have an amazing, amazing team of professionals. We create talks like you're seeing today, interactive talks where our audience will get to engage with the content, because we are so tired of what? You talk, we listen. We are tired of that. So we also have interactive games, which I love the games. The games are really fun too. We also have one-on-one coaching, because how many times have Black women been the only Black woman on the team, within the organization, within the country? I don't know. You know what I'm trying to say? Within the only one. Being the only Black person or the only Black woman is very difficult. It's very hard. So we offer one-on-one coaching for women of color who are feeling isolated in the workplace. We also offer one-on-one coaching for white women or women who lack cultural competency, who find themselves in roles of chief diversity officer, as we've previously discussed the statistic of what is it, 79%, 76.3%, I think it is, of chief diversity officers are of the white race. And I have been in so many meetings where I'm sitting with that person who is saying, hey, Masika, I don't know what I'm doing. Can I get some help? And you know what? That is fantastic. Love that. Love that they know to reach out to get that help, to get that support. But at the same time, it was a point of frustration for me, because I can't get that job. I haven't been able to get that job. But they're hiring me to help them in their job, which is fine and great for them. But just for the industry, how things are set up for Black women, it's part of that injustice, part of the struggle of it. Yes, we offer that one-on-one consultancy for women who don't have the cultural competency for these roles. But it's also an indicator of why Black women are the fastest growing demographic of entrepreneurs. I feel, first, when I learned that statistic, I was very proud to be part of that demographic, still am. But at the same time, I read further into that statistic about why that is. And this is just my theory. I haven't researched this fully yet, but my belief is that it's likely because Black women are being forced out of the work industry, forced out of the workforce. So we need to make our own space, our own places, and find success on our own terms.
Thank you, Masika. Absolutely.
Black women are being actively harmed at workplaces. So entrepreneurship is an option to still pursue a passion of the things that you love, and at the same time not to have to deal with, toxic work environments. So thank you so much for everything you share with us, Masika. Before, we have 5 minutes to go, and we want to leave our audience with what are the things that we can do as allies for Black women at work.
Which is the actions and behavior. So we've heard of allyship, but let's talk about allyship, because those white women who told me, Masika, move out of the way, it's Women's History Month. I'm still laughing at that experience. Move out of the way, it's Women's History Month. When I first met them, they introduced themselves to me as allies. So Allyship is the act of supporting and advocating for the historically oppressed groups, even if one is not a member of that group. Allies need to understand that the experiences of Black women are not the same as other groups, and that specific support and resources are required to address the unique challenges that Black women face. So it's so important, it's imperative, vital, critical to understand that being an ally is an ongoing journey and not a one-time action when it's convenient or when you have an audience, like posting on social media. Um, uh, I think I can't. I learned this term, the Black Square era, from the Black Talent Initiative. So during the Black Square era, during George Floyd protests of 2020, there was a trend, a theme on TikTok that kept showing white women, white people going down to the protest to take a picture of it and then jump right back into their cars to leave. So it's not a one-time action. It is not a performative action. Being an ally means being committed to standing with Black women, Black people, not just when it's easy and not just when your actions are visible. Sometimes standing with Black women will be hard. It means being willing to listen and learn from Black women and taking steps to disrupt the systems of oppression that create environments that forced me out of the workforce to create Diversity Nexus and be the CEO that you see today.
Absolutely, Masika. Thank you. And remembering that the end goal is to support Black women effectively, meaning promote wealth, promote well-being, promote promotions, promote a full well-being for Black women. Yeah, thank you.
So how do we do this? We listen, we compensate, we amplify. It's about using your access to privilege to and power to remove barriers and uplift others. By actively listening and learning from Black women, we can gain a deeper understanding of the challenges we face and become better supports to Black women. Compensation, we talked about the wage gap earlier. So when I first created this deck, I was working off an old statistic that said Black women earn an average of 72 cents on the dollar earned by white workers. Then I did a deeper research, come to find that has decreased. It's actually 66 cents now. Oh my goodness. All too often, Black women are met with people demanding free education and labor. According to the United States Census Bureau, again, American because Canadian statistics didn't exist here, this statistic is worsened if the woman is a mother, has a disability, or has any other form of marginalization, as such as sexuality. So, like I pointed out, when like, let's say the Black woman at Jack Astor's was a mother, like it furthers that gap. So when you add layers of intersectionality to this 66 cents, we get even worsened rates of wage gap compensation. When you click on this is also another interactive feature that you'll find at Diversity Nexus. You hover on this, it'll give you additional statistics. And when you click on this, it'll take you directly to that survey about the survey and the study that was conducted. Amplify. Less than 45% of Black workers experience racism in the workplace, which means many Black individuals suffer in silence. So amplify the Black people of color, Black people in your offices, the Black women, the people of color, acknowledge their contributions. That same woman who said, you can't create a utopia, asked me to create a courageous guidelines or something like that, and then took my work and posted it like it was hers. She didn't mention that I had anything to do with it. And then when I asked for it to be included, she seemed angry and and added my name to it 3 weeks later after no one was looking at it. So amplify Black women's voices. Thank you so much for your time today. Thank you. This was my presentation. This was my conversation. These are the thoughts that I've had on my mind for quite some time. So thank you so much, Diversity Nexus. Thank you so much, Ventura Collective, for inviting me to feature Diversity Nexus and to share my thoughts and vision.
Amazing, Masika. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Diversity Nexus, for bringing your brilliance here. And just a reminder to everyone, it's not up to Black women to make change. They're the recipients of this oppression. And Naomi, I want to bring this comment here, which is a very important. It said, I prefer co-conspirator than ally. I actually prefer community than co-conspirator, right? When you build community, you understand that our destinies, our liberation are tied to each other. But let's at least start with allyship, because that's how you start building community, right?
Yes.
Thank you so much, everyone. Once again, we appreciate. Go ahead, Masika.
Remind, if you want a free copy of this beautiful presentation, email me at masika@workdiversitynexus.com. And did everyone see the TikTok, Diversity Nexus TikTok in the link in the chat? Sorry.
I'll put it back just now.
Yes. I'm not a social media type person, so I think the phrase go share, like, follow. Share, like, follow.
Smash that button.
Smash that button. Thank you.
Thank you, Masika. Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Happy Black History Month, everyone.
Yes.